idea of governance can be traced back to uh, Taittiriya Brahmana and Taittiriya Samhita. So in Taittiriya Brahmana, we have a mention of where a royal crown is offered to Indra, where the idea of coronation actually can be traced back to. And not only that, even the Sayana Bhashya of the Rudradhyaya. So normally the Rudrabhisheka is done chanting this Rudradhyaya, where we have this mantra called Matischame Sumatischame. So for the word Sumati, Sayana Bhashya, Sayanacharya gives Durghata Rajakaryadi Nishchayaha. So, which refers to the resolution of complex matters such as state affairs. So that is one thing we can understand. And even furthermore in Chandogya Upanishad's 7th Adhyaya also, where Sanat Kumara addressing Narada asks, what have you studied? And in a response, Narada states, I have studied Rig Veda, Yajurveda and etc. and Itihasa, Purana. And I have also studied Vako Vakya and Ekayana. So these words are stated. Vako Vakya is essentially the logical studies, arguments. And then Ekayana is being commented by Bhagavad Pada Shankara as Niti-Shastra. So normally there is one version where they say that before Kautilya you don't find much of this thing, but we can actually trace back to. So this is a rebuttal to that argument by Rajeshwara Shastri Dravidji. And apart from that, in many Puranas, Agni Purana and etc., we do find Jayahasmi, Vijayahasmi, so and etc. So where we find the whole idea of governance is one thing. And verses like Jananuraga Prabhavohi Sampadaha. So in the Niti-Sara we find this. So what is the outcome of governance should be? It should be Jana Anuraga. So the gain and the Anuraga, I mean to gain and maintain the affection of the citizens is the main objective. So therefore it could be, it's moreover like even in Raghuvamsha we find saying that these kings of Ikshvaku, they were more like the parents. And Janma Matra Hetavaha, the real biological parents were only biological parents and the real parents were the king, was the king. So that was how their governance was. So these all things shows that the king was more like a father and mother. So mother in the sense of taking care of what it needs for a nourishment of the child, and father in the state in the sense of maybe disciplining him for his betterment, not for the your own betterment, but for the betterment of the society and even the citizen. So that is why the concept of Yukta Danda is being was prescribed by Kautilya. He says that there can be three types of dandas that could be, which could be very harsh, which could be very it's not actually creating any this thing, and there is something called as Yukta Danda. So that is where you punish or create such frameworks where the needed punishment is given in the needed situation. So that is what it is. So it's more about disciplining, but not actually punishing in the sense of it, oppressing kind of a thing. Jananuraga Prabhavohi Sampadaha. So if the Sampada is essentially wealth. So when does a society flourish? Wealth in the sense, here the wealth doesn't mean currency, I mean economic. The wealth is in the sense of holistic wealth. Even being happy is also wealth. So in that state, so how can this be achieved? By Jana Anuraga. If the people or the citizens are affectionate enough towards the king, or they generate that kind of, the governance is such that it creates affection towards the king, then it will be natural for a society to flourish. So therefore it throws the light of the objective of the governance should be Jana Anuraga. And even the concept of king also, if we see, Kautilya, he himself states that, so the king was created by the people themselves. So when there was Matsya in the society, so the people themselves have appointed a person to be king and gave him 1/6 of the grains and 1/10 of the wealth. and said that you be our king. So it's moreover like king. I mean, administration is a duty. It's not where you wield the power, which is unquestionable kind of a thing. So that is the notion that we actually can see. And Rajeshwar Shastri Dravidji actually gives a wonderful explanation on there can be two ways in which we can actually see the approach towards life or towards anything. One is artharthi, the second one is dharmarthi. So what is the uniqueness of our system is our system was dharmarthi. So that is why in Arthashastra or even in Niti-Shastra, it is said that the king should facilitate in such a way that people perform their swadharmas. So the word swadharma is being used. So the word swadharma means varna ashrama dharma, means swadharma. So whichever varna do you belong or whichever ashrama that you are in, you have certain dharmas that are prescribed by the Shastras. Enable those people to perform their swadharmas so that there will be no chaos in the society. So he comes up with what does swadharma actually do is it creates a framework or a system wherein different varnas or different people belonging to different professions do not transgress in the others market area kind of a thing. So essentially the Brahmanas are not having the authority to earn money and keep money with them. And even similarly even Kshatriyas are only there to administer power and not actually uphold wealth. So therefore each and everyone is having a kind of a duty assigned to them which is unique to that particular group. So therefore, there is no transgression, there is no insecurity that someone will come and again, take my position or my, flourishment or sustenance. So he calls this, what will happen is, he defines a enmity. Enmity is defined is defined as ekartha abhiniveshitvam, is the aritvam or the enmity between people that can happen. So what is ekartha abhiniveshitvam is, different people mongering for only one thing. Like, everyone is towards power or wealth. What happens is everyone is doing anything and everything to gain that. So that other fields are actually left for which actually the imbalance is happening in the society. It's called ekartha abhiniveshitvam. Abhiniveshitvam is desirous, being desirous of ekartha, of a particular entity. So, if the approach is artharthi, this is what happens. It's because everyone is artharthi, everyone is towards wealth and power. So what happens? Everyone is going to one destination only, so therefore congestion will definitely happen. So what does, and because of that again he gives a theory how this is being unfolded. What happens is, if you are artharthi, there is no element of dharma, so therefore fulfillment is very hard to achieve. The feeling of contentedness is very hard to achieve. So what happens is, how much ever wealth you may have, how much ever power you may have, that will not suffice. Because your human tendency is such. So what will you do is, you have enough amount of wealth, even then you are not fulfilled about it. So you feel that you want others' wealth also. So the other person is also, in order to get or grab others' wealth, you cannot grab it while he is vigilant about his own wealth. So therefore, you will try to deceive him, where deception happens. And even that person is also artharthi. So therefore, he is also not contented with whatever wealth he is having. So he will also be wanting your wealth. So this will lead to what? This will lead to suspicion. So there is no might and kind of a situation where we all can trust each others, and not thinking that this guy is going to do something harm, and etc. So where will actually this will lead to the unrest in the society, and where in order to again achieve equality or this thing in the society, again unnecessary power has to be used. So if people are towards dharmarthi, so what will happen is you will think every time about what is your dharma, in the sense not in the vague nature, what are you, in which ashrama are you in which kind of a varna that you are in. So what is it that you need? Maybe you will try for fulfillment, and after certain time you will think about, after grihastha you will think about vanaprastha, where you say that, this is enough for me for as materialistic life, I will think something else. So where the design of life itself is such that it is creating cohesion among people, so that harmony is maintained naturally and not by any system being imposing for harmony.
So Srinivas ji, is there any scriptural reference what defines what is the property, what is the actual sampatti we can be treated?
There are ashta sampat. There are different kinds of the word of wealth itself is sampat. So sampat can be, so there are having kids, definitely having money is sampat, but that is the one kind of it. You have food is one kind of a wealth. Kids are wealth. Family is a wealth. Having trust is wealth. So many things.
No, that is okay. Means what could be treated as my sampati? It is the general acceptance that it is my sampati, like this. The sir was also referring to.
So that is where you come, a bit philosophical maybe insight would be needed. So everything is subject. So if we come from the Vedanta perspective, everything cannot be in black and white. Can be in binaries. So everything is subject to definition in the Vyavaharika Prapancha. Good, bad, anything, everything is subject to definition is what the Shastra says. There cannot be any absolute truth apart from the Brahman. So that means that everything is subject to definition.
So means this may have mamatva.
Whatever gives you happiness. So essentially the fundamental nature of human is to craving for happiness and trying to evade pain. So that is what his nature is. But what is happiness? What are the means of happiness? That is where the Shastras will give you a guide. They guide us in achieving that happiness. So if you may feel happy for possessing that phone today, but may not be tomorrow. So therefore, the cause for your happiness, the source, which we call it as sukha sadhanam or ishta sadhanam, it is subject. It will be changing every day. So there cannot be any one particular thing that we can actually come say that this is what it could be.
But I also would like to point out that you made two points. One is what is wealth. Second is ownership. They are two different things. Pashu Sampat is your wealth, but what is the extent of ownership you have is totally different from it. So can you kill it because of that, because you own it? No. That is the distinction. So it is a matrix. The ownership is orthogonal to its wealth quotient. So once again, while discussing, we stepped into people having to perform their swadharma, right? So the definition of, or the conceptualization, definition and organization of state elements has a direct correlation or an understanding of what is the functioning of the society and the individual. The two cannot be divorced. Can we say this much?
Yeah, because in Arthashastra itself, he starts with telling that people have to perform swadharma, because what is swadharma, what is varna dharma. Why in Niti-Shastra he will start saying what is varna dharma and ashrama dharma. It is because very much.
So that is the Angangi Bhava also.
One related point, I think probably it's already clear, but the whole point of समाज अर्थार्थी न हो, धर्मार्थी हो, ये बात शासन के द्वारा नहीं, शिक्षा और परिवार में शिक्षा व्यवस्था, विद्यालय शिक्षा, समाज में शिक्षा है, उसके द्वारा शिक्षा यानी धर्माचरण की ही शिक्षा, यानी उसके द्वारा ये इंश्योर किया जाएगा ताकि समाज धर्मार्थी रहे, स्वधर्म का पालन करने के लिए. ओनली देन. सो बेसिकली दिस इज एन एंटायर इकोसिस्टम, एंटायर पैकेज. इट्स नॉट लाइक कि मैं कंप्यूटर का सारा पार्ट लाऊंगा और उसका कुछ पार्ट निकाल दूंगा, बट देन इट शुड स्टिल वर्क.
I think I'll just conclude by stating one point where Rajeshwar Shastri Dravid ji keeps on, and even in other commentaries also we find that until and unless you value something which cannot be perceived, whether you call it adrishta, whether you call it dharma, whether you call it paraloka, there cannot be a equilibrium in the society is what, why we are calling it Shabda Pramana, why we are calling it Trayi is because unless and until you value the existence or you, whether it exists or not is a different thing, whether you value that particular entity which is not being seen, which cannot be proved by mere empirical evidence, until then, I mean, the whole, I think the uniqueness of the Niti-Shastra is that it is grounded on this reality that everything and anything comes from that. If you cannot respect dharma, saying that it is not, it cannot be proven through empirical evidence, then all these things will fall apart. So anything and everything, whatever vidhi nishedhas pertaining to Rajaniti are very much anchored in this sacred core. So this is what.
Just wanted to add one thing. So we have a course where this basically some very introductory ethics kind of thing for student. And one of the discussions that came, for which of course we said that, I mean, all the instructors said we are not going to discuss this. The question is why people should bother about ethics. And it always comes down because it will lead to, if you don't do this, you will see this and all. But the bottom line is, I mean, why even the idea is needed. And that's where I think this is coming from, which the Western ideas end up missing because Pratyaksha is the only pramana.
Yeah.
And Anumana is still acceptable, but the Shabda Pramana doesn't exist.
Interestingly, our all, Anumana, we say that Shrutimata Starkonu Sandhiyatam. It is not pure logic, but the logic which is anchored in the Shruti, in the Vedic wisdom.
The hypothetical or the categorical imperative are basically about creating that reason for morality. So it's, but the difference is it is normative. It's not by natural order.
So I wish to conclude by quoting that, saying that Yadatta Saushthavam Kinchit Tad Guroreva Menahi Yadatra Saushthavam Kinchit Tan Mamaiva Name Guroho. If there are any virtues in my presentation, those belongs to my gurus and not myself. And if there are any shortcomings, those belong to my ignorance and not my gurus. Thank you very much.